News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Governor Abbott calls Tren de Aragua officially a tier one level gang, I should say, in Texas. And that means a lot as far as what our law enforcement locally and statewide and in the county level can do and should do according to this new level. The other levels, tier one gangs that are at that level are Texas Syndicate and Mexican Mafia, two notorious prison gangs, as well as Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, the Crips, the Bloods, and the Latin Kings. DPS can now run targeted enforcement operations and coordinated efforts with local authorities. Members of tier one gangs can face enhanced penalties for crime, stiffer sentences. Abbott says he considers the gang to be a foreign terrorist organization, which is exactly right, and said a database and strike force will help keep track of the members. It's statewide, and it's working together in a center, a fusion. It's fusion among all law enforcement, which gives strength. And my friend and our friend of the show, who's been on the show as a regular guest for 2-3 years at least, Jason Jones, retired DPS, head of border operations and border security, border operations and counterterrorism and counterintelligence, who is now a Newsmax border correspondent, literally helped craft this policy for Governor Abbott. He was one of the people helping put this together. He joined us last night. It was incredible. Here's what he said. We have allowed in 827,484 Venezuelan illegals. And out of that 874,000, he says he believes that he says it's reasonable to expect, has a reasonable expectation is tens of thousands of Tren de Aragua members, tens of thousands. So that means 20 or 30 or 40,000 of the worst violent gang in the most violent terroristic gang in the side of this hemisphere are in this country. They did not have anything in here, and he says that law enforcement in Texas confirmed it 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, because of Joe and Kamala's wide open borders. They are here and they're working. The biggest fear, he says, is them synergizing with Mexican cartels and becoming a hyper problem. And this is where this can end in it becoming a hyper problem. The synergy with MS-13 in Chicago and New York, he said, is yes, it's true. I've already been told by the FBI and reports that it's true. He says, yes, that is true. They are doing synergy with cartels. And now the level of Tier 1 gang makes it equal number one priority with local law enforcement, with DA, district attorneys, statewide synergy. Every major city in Texas is now going to work together. He says they're now working on Tren de Aragua is working with Colombian, Mexican cartels, including FARC, which is a terrorist organization in Colombia. They literally are at this point, at this very moment, according to the Wall Street Journal, seeking to take out the largest cartel in Colombia to replace them. They're in like 5 countries in Latin America, and they started in the state of Aragua, which is a state in Venezuela. And the governor of Venezuela, of Aragua, the state, allowed them. He literally decided to allow Tren de Aragua to run the prisons in that that Venezuelan state. And upon release, they had to leave the country. So they ran their own prison, and then upon release, those gang members were set forth into 5 other Latin American countries, and now here. So Trump is exactly right. They emptied prisons. They're coming. And the intelligence and law enforcement experts say tens of thousands of them are here. They are not just in North Dallas. They are not just in El Paso, where they just took over a hotel there until the authorities have shut it down. They are not just in San Antonio. They are not just in Houston. They are not just in Austin. They are in every major city in Texas now, he said. One of their members was in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, which is in BFE. It is in the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin on the border of either Iowa or Minnesota. And a woman and her daughter were tied up and raped back and forth for hours by the same guy who had a hatchet from Tren de Aragua. So they're in small towns raping you and your daughters. They are in big cities killing, raping, and selling their sex slavery. And it's all because of Joe and Kamala. Here's my questions for you. Do you support Governor Abbott's declaration of Tren de Aragua as a foreign terror organization? We can just call them TDA. Do you think this is legit or a publicity stunt? And why aren't other governors doing this? 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Governor Abbott was the first to start busting these illegals, and now he's the first to do this, and he's right to do it. Let me give you some more intelligence here. This is from my buddy Eric Erickson in his column. Local public health outlets in Springfield have had to interpreter budget. Their interpreter budget has gone from $40,000 to over $400,000 to cover Creole interpreters for the Haitians. Local taxes are now going way up. Services have to be cut to make up the difference. Locals who depend on local health care and social services are now waiting far longer than ever. It goes on and on and on what they're doing. But this is a violent, oppressive gang. Governor Abbott tweeted this out today in Houston. This is from yesterday. I designated Tren de Aragua a foreign terrorist organization. Texas will aggressively target them to disrupt their criminal activities and deny their foothold in our state. Texas is the wrong state for them to do business in. And I'm going to say one more thing that my buddy Jason Jones told me on the air last night, that Tren de Aragua are here to be a disruptive operation. And they are literally, the U.S. intelligence officials have confirmed with multiple federal agencies that they are here to do disruptive operations, which means they're here to disrupt our country's functionality, our country's functionality, our country's safety, your safety, my safety, and to disrupt our operations as a nation. And look, this is as bad as it gets, and it's beyond incredible. All right, I have Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua expanding its deadly reach to the U.S. This is a 4-page, sprawling, terrifying story about how wicked, vile, and horrifying Tren de Aragua is. Now that I've shared some of the information, I'm going to share this from this journal story, this news story, cover story they did a day or two ago. Coming up in a moment with some highlights, plus your call. Is Trump right to, not Trump, but is Governor Abbott right to, do you support his declaration of TDA as a foreign terror organization? Do you think this is legit or a publicity stunt? Why aren't other governors doing this? 800-288-WBAP is our number. All right, I'll share details from this story. Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua expands its deadly reach to the U.S. Wall Street Journal. Coming up next, plus your call on the Chris Kroc Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Okay, Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua expands its deadly reach to the U.S. Wall Street Journal. My question, by the way, as Governor Abbott has now designated them a Tier 1 gang, which puts them on the same level as Texas Syndicate, Mexican Mafia, which are two notorious prison gangs, the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, Crips, the Bloods, and the Latin Kings. This allows synergy statewide to go after them and destroy them, at least out in this state. Do you support Governor Abbott's declaration of TDA as a foreign terror organization? Do you think this is legit or a publicity stunt, as Democrats are saying? And why aren't other governors doing this? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Jason Crow, a Democrat who represents Aurora, Denver suburbs, said these claims have led to a narrative that makes it harder for law enforcement to do their job and incited dangerous rhetoric against our immigrant community. Yeah, B to the S. The DPS head, Stephen McGraw, says Venezuelan government will not share its database of known gang members, making it necessary for law enforcement to identify them in other ways. A hotel in El Paso was temporarily shut down after local authorities filed suit against it as a public nuisance. Undocumented illegals and gang members were arrested. Unspecified amount of suspected members of Tren de Aragua earlier this summer, charged with assault, drugs, prostitution. To be designated a Tier 1 gang, this is from WFA TV Channel 8, no, it's from Dallas Morning News, actually. To be designated a Tier 1, the organization must be violent, far-reaching, and have a structured hierarchy. That's obviously them. TDA gangsters are like cockroaches, McGraw said. They multiply quickly. Small intrusions into communities become infestations if we don't aggressively pursue these Venezuelan thugs. Exactly right. The Wall Street Journal. Late last year, Homeland Security got the call, hey, have you heard of the Tren de Aragua? Please don't tell me you've seen them. This Homeland Security official called Anthony Salisbury said, yes, it's them. They were operating in Texas. Now they are also in dozens of criminal cases involving the gang in Miami, where he's based. They expanded fast in Latin America, he says, and they're expanding fast here. Fearsome transnational gang force. Federal official calls it MS-13 on steroids, entrenched in many United States communities. They've established drug distribution networks, extortion rackets, prostitution rings, making new homes for them elsewhere in Latin America. More than I already told you how many. It's like 800 and some odd thousand Venezuelans are here. Tens of thousands of them are TDA, according to my expert who was on last night. TDA members are suspects in shootings of two New York City police officers, the killing of a former Venezuelan police officer in Miami, and a crime from Chicago to Texas. Law enforcement officers say there's now more than 100 TDA in open investigations with law enforcement. They are in Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, Chile, Ecuador, and now Kamala and Joe brought them here along with other countries. They are looking for better opportunities from those in Venezuela, and they come here because we are ripe with big fruit hanging off the tree. We are easy pickings for them, and they're going to do so much damage to us, and they already are all over this country. It's vile. It's terror, and it's Kamala and Biden's fault. They found a particularly lucrative territory in New York City, the Journal says. Robberies at Macy's, Sunglass Hut, upscale stores, moped riding gang members also have been there from TDA. Unsuspecting pedestrians snatching phones. Chief of detectives from NYPD says it was like a wave of crime we have never seen before. Members are difficult to identify. They have entered the U.S. through southern border and share migration paperwork amongst themselves. It's difficult for police to determine a suspect's criminal history because we don't have diplomatic ties with Venezuela. They could be wanted for murder, the chief of detectives for NYPD says. We wouldn't know it. They were known in other countries for dismembering their rivals, leaving remains of their rivals in garbage bags on the street in front of their business. A worker from behind, they fatally shot one worker at a place that didn't pay their tax, quote unquote, of protection. They shot him from behind, and they left his body parts in a bag the next day in front of the produce place. They extort restaurants, small shops, anyone. It's an organization that's involved in everything. The gang looks for earnings. In Chile, there were possibilities. One guy in Chile who didn't do business with them the right way they wanted him to, his body was found in a suitcase buried under more than 4 feet of concrete in a nearby shantytown. It's been very shocking for Chilean society, said one official. They attribute a 31% rise in homicides to TDA. Their kidnappings have more than doubled in the past 10 years. The number of foreign victims and perpetrators of homicides, many of them Venezuelan, have risen rapidly. TDA is trying to challenge Colombia's most powerful armed militia, the Gulf Clan, which traffics cocaine and illegal migrants into the U.S. and smuggles metals from illegal mining. TDA is now dabbling in both moving illegal migrants and extracting illegally mined gold. They have a big market for narco trafficking in the United States. Joe and Kamala, you brought them here. They weren't here when you started. They're all over, tens of thousands of them now. You've done this. So there we are, guys. We got to vote for Kamala so we can make sure we can fight this, huh? Oh, wait, she created it with Joe. She mocks what we say. She laughs at it while our people die and will die. And by the way, my expert on last night that I told you about, Jason Jones, literally said that we are just, this is the beginning. You ain't seen nothing. All this is here. You're going to see fruition and flowers and blooms of this and fruit coming out in a year or two or three that are worse than everything right now. That's what's going on. And that's what they did to us. All right. Now, they also destroyed our economy. And it was funny hearing Kamala today at NABJ National Association of Black Journalists, tell us that she's going to fix the economy that she broke. She's the one. She broke it. Now she says she knows how to fix it. Interesting, isn't it? I'm going to be playing or telling you about some information that's going to shock your world, rock your world. I'll even start early because we have time. Our number, by the way, 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. The big headline here, wages, our wage growth actually will not be keeping up with inflation this year. And brand new information that came out from the Census Board, that's the United States government statistics, shows that we are literally poorer today than in 2019 when Joe and Kamala started. We are poorer today than when they started. It's a shocking truth. And they have spent 5.3% more spending than Trump has, only to leave us poor. I'm going to give you those details next. And my question on that is, as far as this destruction of our wages, our economy, and this inflation, who do you trust to handle our economy and inflation better, Kamala or Trump? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. All those details coming up next on the Chris Kroc Show on News Talk 820 WBAP. And that's at 33 after the hour on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Well, let me tell you this. Wall Street Journal has one heck of a column, and I am not going to let go of this one for a long time because you got to hear this, and it's going to be very relevant from time to time for a while. Real median earnings for full-time workers last year, that means what we took home versus what the inflation was, our real median earnings for full-time workers declined 1.6%. Even more for high school grads. If you're a high school grad level, you lost 3.3% of your earnings last year because of inflation. You went negative 3.3%. You did not grow in your income. For full-time workers, all of them, 1.6% lower than you lost 1.6%. You did not get a raise, even if you did get a raise. This means inflation outpaced wage gains for most low-wage workers, the Journal says. Now, here's where it gets really, really, really bad. I have specific numbers because under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for 3.5 years, Americans have gotten poorer. The first 3 years of Trump versus the first 3 years of Kamala Joe. Are you ready? In the first 3 years of Trump, you made $13,100 more in the first 3 years of Trump than you did the first 3 years of Biden. You lost $13,100 if you are Asian in the first 3 years of Biden-Harris. You gained in the first 3 years of Trump, if you're white, you gained $8,160 more in the first 3 years of Trump than the first 3 years of Biden-Harris. If you are Hispanic, you gained $6,260 more in the first 3 years of Trump than you did in the first 3 years of Biden. You lost. If you are black, you went from $4,500 more in the first 3 years of Trump to earning almost $2,000 less in the first 3 years of Biden. So that's what you made more in the first 3 years of Trump versus the first 3 years of Biden because of Bidenomics and Bidenflation. Kamala said it was working and it was great and it was incredible. She beamed. I can play the audio 5-6 times saying it over the months and months and months of the past year or so. The Journal goes on. The Trump tax cut reform and deregulation boosted growth, which resulted in a tighter labor market and rising wages without fueling inflation. Federal spending as a share of GDP averaged 20.5% during the first 3 years under Trump. Now, I want you to know that 20% is the average amount of federal spending increases since World War II. Our government, on average, has spent 20.5% share of the GDP average since World War II. Biden-Harris increased it by 5.3% to 25.8%. Never, the Journal says, has the government spent so much money only to leave Americans poorer. The administration today's report said this. Joe Biden and Kamala said, today's report shows we are making real progress growing with the middle class. That's what they said in response to this. America's middle class, they say, has seen, Journal says, Americans' middle class has seen their incomes after inflation stagnate during the Biden presidency. The White House also boasts health insurance coverage reached record highs. The Journal says, but the share of uninsured was the same in 2023 as 2019. The same number of insured in 4 years, according to the census report. The only difference is Americans now have fewer Americans now have private insurance. They kicked 2.6% of the people off of their private health insurance. More are now covered by the government. So the amount of coverage has not increased, but the spending has. All told, federal health care spending has increased by more than $500 billion in the last 3.5 years, yet this money hasn't bought better health coverage. The census report explains, the Journal says, why so many Americans are sour on the Biden economy. The facts back them up. That plus so much more. I have brand new from Bloomberg. I'll share the details in a few. Consumers in the United States are still worried about the future. Look at this from Fox News. Inflation. Food, more than 20% in the first 3.5 years of Biden. Increased 20%, more than 20%. Housing up 23%. Gas and energy up 50%. Auto insurance up 55%. That's why a CNN pollster says, when asked who would handle the economy better, Trump, before the debate, had a 53-37 lead over Kamala, and after the debate, it went up even more, 2 points, 55-35. He has a 20-point advantage in who would handle the economy better. I got more. The amount of the millions of working age Americans that are not working, millions of them. United States workers under Kamala and Joe have lost 1.4 million jobs, while foreign workers have gained 3 million jobs. Millions of working age Americans are not working. They've left the workforce. After 6 months of asylum, Joe and Kamala have given those illegals work permits, and encounters at the southern border went up almost 240%. So this is an invasion and a replacement of Americans' jobs and eventually Americans' votes. That's their legacy. And here's another sad effect of what they've done. Almost 1 in 4 millennials and Gen Zers say they will not have kids due to finances. And that's how you end a country. You bankrupt it, you overregulate it, and then you don't produce more children. And you let foreigners who don't know our values and have no business being here produce tons of kids and let them take over this country. Who are they? What are their values? Who knows? Joe and Kamala think they're going to vote for them. That's why they're doing this. So who do you trust to handle our economy and inflation better, Trump or Kamala? 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. Lines wide open. You can chime in right now. We have more from the almost 1 in 4 kids, millennials and Gen Zers don't want to have kids due to their finances. This is literally how you destroy a country. This is what's happened in Europe and what's happening a lot more there. They're about 20 years ahead of us in their destruction of their countries. Almost 23% of adults ranging from 18 to 43 say their financial motivation to remain childless boils down to 2 issues: valuing the financial freedom that comes from not having kids, as well as concerns about their ability to foot the bill for raising children. In a July survey, Pew found that Americans under 50 without children said they opted against kids for both lifestyle and financial reasons, such as wanting to save for the future and having more time for hobbies and interests. You know, you can do what you want, and if some people are not meant to have kids, and I really actually mean that, not in a bad way either, and that's okay. But if we are overcome as a whole, as a people with selfishness, then it's obvious that our country is going to be destroyed. That's what that is all about. The CPI, Consumer Price Index, which is a measurement of goods and services everything except for food and energy prices, which are volatile. They're very volatile. When you strip those down, we had increase in inflation in August. Things went up 0.2% in August. It is not going down. The 12-month inflation rate of CPI is now 2.5%. Okay, so that's literally almost double of what it was when Trump left office. So when Trump left, it was 1.4%. A year and a half later, it went to 9.1% by Kamala and Joe spending. Kamala was the critical tie vote. She cast the tie vote in 3 separate votes to put in $2.5 trillion into our economy. She is literally responsible for half of all the spending in the Biden administration personally. She's the one vote that made it happen and created this inflation, at least maybe not hyperinflation, but inflation. And also, people say, well, Trump spent all this money. Well, wrong. Biden and Harris spent twice as much as Trump did in 4 years. They spent twice as much as Trump did in 3.5 years than Trump did in 4 years. More than twice. They spent $5.6 trillion. And by the way, Trump actually had a pandemic. And so that was one of the reasons for that. That's a once in a generation pandemic. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Here's some more bad news. The inflation breakdown from CNBC, August 2024, is consumer price index rose 2.5%. CPI inflation is going on gradually declining, but a few categories, such as housing, remains stubbornly high. And the Fed is saying that they're going to cut the interest rate maybe 0.25 or 25 points or 50 points. We don't know how that's going to go down, but it's still, your mortgage is still going to be expensive, unfortunately. Here, this is from Bloomberg today. U.S. consumers are still worried about the future. While stocks look good on Friday, despite a recent uptick in consumer sentiment, a record share of United States households are uncertain about the economic outlook. Most expect inflation to take a bigger chunk of their incomes. They're right, unfortunately. And the numbers of people that are 30-year-olds who live on their own went from 80% in 1983 to now adult milestone. 30-year-olds who live on their own went from 80% now down to like 60% or less. It's like a rocket plummeting down. Here's the share of 30-year-olds who have ever married. It went from almost 80% down to 40% since 83. Live with a child went from about 50% or 55% down to 30%. Own a home in 1983, 30-year-olds, United States 30-year-olds went from 48% down to 30%. Our country is on a real decline. And I am incredulous that anybody would vote for Kamala Harris in this, regardless of how much you hate Trump or dislike him. Oh, I got one last thing that I got to share. It's real quick, because when we come back, we're going to get into Democrats bet Harris will move to the left as president. This is a great story I got to share with you from the Hill that just came out. Democrats are betting that Harris will move to the left as president. She's not going to be the monarch she claims she is right now, and they know it, and they're saying that openly in this news Hill. The Hill article. Quick stats from voters, what they're saying. This is from Kim Strassel in the Journal. A 34-year-old black woman in Milwaukee explained to the New York Times why the debate nudged her towards Trump. When Trump was in office, I'm not going to lie, I was living way better. I've never been so down as in the past 4 years. Here we go. We are voting for the leader of our country, not who we want in our wedding party, said a Pennsylvania woman in the CNN group. She now plans to vote Trump. Of the 6 Trump converts in the Reuters article, all said, that was the 10 people they surveyed that watched the debates, 6 of them said they're going to vote for Trump officially, or they're now leaning towards Trump. Of all the 6 converts, these were independents that flipped to Trump after the debate. They all said they didn't like him as a person, but they said their personal financial situation had been better when he was president. Obama lost the white working class, she says, by 20 points in 2012. Biden lost the white working class by 26 points in 2020. The most recent Times poll has Harris behind by 36 points in white working class, and it has barely budged since mid-July. So she's 10 points worse with white working class voters. Harris is winning among non-white voters without college degrees by 30 points. Obama's margin? Hers is 30 points, okay, with non-white voters. So her margin is 30 points over Trump, but Obama's margin was 67 points, 37 points higher than where she's at in non-white voters. She's losing voters 45 and older. She's behind among male voters in a notably wider margin than she's ahead of young women, and 41% of Hispanics say they back Trump. The last time the press and the Democrats were this giddy about their candidate, this resolutely blind to the disconnect with the average voters, was in 2016. Hillary's calling. Doesn't mean we're going to win, but we got to win, y'all. Okay, Democrats are betting that Harris will move to the left as a president. Why she will be a leftist president. She will not be a centrist. She is not a centrist. That is next at 48 after the hour on the Chris Crock Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. All right, get ready for this. This is pretty stunning. This is from The Hill. Democrat lawmakers are giving Vice President Harris a pass on her policy flip-flops and her efforts to tack toward the political center, confident she is still a progressive at heart and will fight hard to achieve the goals on tax policy, climate change, and other priorities. Even the Senate's most liberal Democrats say they are not worried about Harris backing away from her previous support for Medicare for all, which means taking away our insurance plans. You do not have private insurance. She will end private insurance. So even her most liberal Democrats are not worried about her backing away from her previous support for Medicare for all or banning fracking, because they believe she will push hard to rein in insurance and pharmaceutical companies or crack down on fossil fuel consumption. I'm from Massachusetts. She's from California. On climate, abortion, on racial, LGBTQ issues, we are absolutely in agreement on her agenda, said Ed Markey, senator from Massachusetts. He's the leading progressive in the Senate who has co-sponsored Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, and other ambitious liberal policy goals. That's why Elizabeth Warren and I are so passionately campaigning for her and supporting her. I told you, she is a radical leftist. Now, here is Bernie Sanders literally saying the loud part, the wrong part out loud. He's saying what I'm talking about right now. She is a progressive. She's going to pass all of her things, banning fracking, forcing you to take government health care, no private health care. Listen.
Campaigned on. Do you think that she is abandoning her progressive ideals?
No, I don't think she's abandoning her ideals. I think she's trying to be pragmatic and doing what she thinks is right in order to win the election. My own view is slightly different. I think
there's a quiet part out loud. She's just saying what she needs to do. I'll read it directly. She's saying, I think she is trying to be pragmatic and do what she thinks is right in order to win the election. So she's saying and doing what she thinks is right to win the election. So she's not going to change her progressive values. I mean, Bernie just said it. That's on my Twitter feed. I'll tweet it out again right now, my friends. You can see it yourself and share it. So the leading progressives on Capitol Hill are too alarmed. My question I'm going to ask you right now is, do you agree with Democrats who believe Kamala will be the far-left president that she wants to be after she's elected? Do you agree with Democrats who believe that Kamala will be a far-left president after she wins election? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. It's really simple. Are you ready for socialism? If you are, then you vote for her. And that's the truth. All the most liberal people right now, Democrats, are saying that she will be it. Guess what your biggest proof is? Very few people know this. I share it as much as I can on this show. There's a woman in Great Britain who ran the current prime minister's campaign. He was a total liberal leftist, like Kamala. He pretended to be moderate. She ran his campaign. He pretended to be moderate. He won, and now he's governing as a far-left president, a far-left prime minister in Britain. Kamala hired her and flew her over here to tell her how to do that in her campaign. How do I pretend I'm moderate and so I can win and then be the liberal progressive far leftist that I am? And she hired her to do that. That's what you're watching happen. And that's why Bernie says it, and that's why all these most liberal people in the Senate said it. That's why when she was a senator, she literally was the most liberal person in the Senate in 2019, and in 2020, only the most liberal next to Bernie Sanders. She was more radical than Bernie Sanders and AOC and, what's her name? Well, AOC's not the Senate, and Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas. There you go, y'all. 800-288-WBAP. Do you agree with Democrats that she's going to be a far-left president after elected? Those that are saying that. Hey, coming up next on the Chris Crock Show, 1 million are now dead or injured in the Russia-Ukraine war. Is it time for Ukraine to end the war with Russia? Do you want to continue to fund it? Do you really think Putin plans to invade other countries? Oh, I can't wait to get into this with you. Coming up next on the Chris Crock Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3 at 10:03.